Welcome to the Deep Dive. This morning, we're really going to try and cut through the noise from what's been a pretty intense week. We've got some key insights lined up, touching on everything from, well, devastating natural disasters right through to trade tensions and even some important health news.
It really is fascinating, isn't it, how all these seemingly separate events actually link up. They paint a picture of the challenges we're facing globally right now. So our aim today is to explore those immediate impacts, sure, but also, maybe more importantly, what they mean for you, why it all matters.
Okay, let's start with something truly difficult, that catastrophic flooding in Central Texas. I mean, the descriptions coming out are just...
Wait, tell it.
Apocalyptic is the word some are using. The Guadalupe River, massive surge, worst floods in decades.
Yeah, it's incredibly serious.
And Kirk County, especially around Camp Mystic, seems to be hit extremely hard. We're hearing over 100 dead, maybe 20 still missing.
Yeah.
Including children. Just heartbreaking.
It is.
Roads destroyed, communications down, FEMA's fully mobilized, which tells you the scale. It's clearly a huge ongoing disaster. What does an event like this signify?
Well, first off, it's a stark reminder, isn't it, about the power of extreme weather and maybe how vulnerable some of our infrastructure is. Beyond the immediate tragedy, you've got to ask questions about the long-term recovery, the economic hit to those communities.
Right.
And it underlines just how vital those federal and volunteer efforts are, especially since forecasts are warning more rain might be coming. It's a profound challenge.
And these kinds of natural disasters, they often send ripples through the economy, don't they?
Absolutely.
So maybe shifting gears a bit. Let's talk economics. President Trump announced new tariffs, 25% on goods from Japan and South Korea, effective August 1st. The stated goal is tackling an unfair trade imbalance and wanting to return jobs to the U.S. People are calling it economic nationalism. What does that really mean in practice?
Right, economic nationalism. Basically, it's putting your own country's economic interests first, often using tools like these tariffs, sometimes over existing global agreements. Now, analysts are definitely warning about potential blowback. Retaliation from Japan and South Korea, key allies, that could hit certain sectors hard.
Like what sort of sectors?
Think about cars, maybe consumer electronics, even the parts inside your phone. Companies are now scrambling, really, to look at their supply chains, maybe restructure them, and we already saw the NASDAQ get a bit shaky on the news. The worry isn't just about, prices going up immediately for you at the store, but the risk of a wider trade spat. History kind of shows these things can escalate in unpredictable ways.
Yeah, unpredictability seems key there.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of global ripples, let's turn to international relations. We saw the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu meeting President Trump at the White House. Key topics: the escalating conflict in Gaza, maybe a ceasefire, and of course Iran's nuclear program. What makes this whole diplomatic situation so tricky right now?
It's a really delicate balancing act, isn't it? The U.S. is clearly showing strong support for Israel. But reports suggest President Trump also pushed for de-escalation in Gaza, trying to minimize casualties. He's walking a very fine line.
Okay.
And there's talk of a follow-up meeting soon in Jordan with representatives from some key Arab nations. That just highlights how interconnected all these regional tensions are. You need broader buy-in for any kind of stability.
Right, stability seems a long way off sometimes. Okay, let's bring it back home. There's a contentious legal fight brewing in Boston. Students, activists, they're suing over deportation policies. They claim pro-Palestinian activists on campuses are being unfairly targeted.
Yes, I saw that.
And they're arguing it violates free expression. Is this pushing boundaries on campus free speech?
It certainly throws up big questions, Where does free speech end and immigration enforcement begin? The Justice Department says it's purely about visa violations. But rights groups are calling it a, quote, dangerous precedent. They worry it could stifle dissent.
So the outcome could be significant.
Definitely. It could really shape how universities handle activism, particularly involving international students going forward. Big implications for academic freedom and immigration policy on campuses nationwide.
Okay, one final topic. Let's pivot to health. A pretty surprising insight from a new study. Despite updated medical advice, about 1 in 6 elderly Americans, are still taking daily aspirin for heart health.
Yeah.
But for folks over 70, the guidelines now say this actually increases the risk of serious stomach bleeding, outweighing the benefits. Why is this old advice so sticky?
Well, it gets back to changing habits, doesn't it? And deeply held beliefs. For decades, aspirin was pushed as almost a miracle drug, a panacea for heart health. That perception is really hard to shift. So this really highlights the need for, well, better public health campaigns to get the word out, but also for doctors to be really proactive in updating their advice based on the latest science. We might see some movement with new Medicare protocols expected this year that could help standardize things. It's a classic case of science evolving and practices needing to catch up.
So wrapping this all up, what does this mean for you listening? I mean, this deep dive covers a lot in 1 week. It shows how fast things change, right? From natural disasters hitting communities hard, to global politics shifting, even down to reevaluating our own personal health choices. It really feels interconnected.
It absolutely does. And I think if you connect all these dots, it just underscores how important it is to think critically about the information coming at us all the time. So maybe a final thought to leave you with. How do our own deeply held beliefs, whether they're about our health or trade policies or politics, how do they adapt or maybe resist adapting when faced with new evidence or changing circumstances?
That's a really good question to think about. We hope this deep dive gave you some valuable insights today. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive, where we'll keep digging into the most important and sometimes surprising things happening in our world.